Good morning, good morning. Hello and welcome to the Coach's Corner, brought to you by the Endurance Lab, where you can join the coaches live and unscripted as we recap your week and answer your questions from the forum. My name's Jason Flores, one of your Endurance Lab coaches, and today I'm joined by Taya Freestead, Ian Murray, Mitch Dingerman, our nutritional therapist, Andrea Cullen, and today we have a special guest. Coach Nate Last, athlete and owner, and just home from Indian Wells 70.3, and operator of Mental Grit. This is getting way too long. welcome, Coach Nate Last. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's really great to have you. We have a couple housekeeping notes I wanted to make sure that we brought forward. We did want to give a shout out to last week topic that we talked about, overcoming the imposter syndrome. I'm sure Nate Last will have a little bit about that, but we wanted to give a shout out to the Jordan Harbinger Show. Thanks for a great talk. Him and Gabriel Mizrahi did a great job at a deep dive into identifying and overcoming the imposter syndrome. So check out that podcast. It's podcast 125 on the deep dive. Search for it in Apple Podcasts and search for the Jordan Harbinger Show. All right, excellent. Back to us here. We're going to jump straight into hot topics. I want Coach Last to start with it, and maybe start with a little bit of where Mental Grit and just his mission as a company and a group, and maybe just we can take it from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the introduction. I mean, I am off to Indian Wells, and I'm a little bit sick here, so I apologize for the awkward sounding voice. But Mental Grit has been a phenomenal experience over the last 5-6 years now that I've been really engaging in it, really getting involved in it. Went to the University of Utah, and deep dived into the very applicatory mental side, the mental side of sports. I was a lacrosse player, and I was a golfer, all of that stuff, and I was good at the physical part. I had the physical assets. I was able to shoot the ball. I was able to pass. I could do all the things I needed to do. But the swing of the game killed me. As soon as, something stupid happened or a bad play was called, I would get emotional and I would get pissed off, and then my game would go down. And I just didn't know why. I had no idea why. And I started to explore all the avenues, and I realized that there's this whole piece of sport that we just don't understand, or at least I didn't have accessibility to. And that's the mental game. So with regards to Mental Grit, I went out, I got my master's degree in it, and really just, develop Mental Grit to bring sports psychology training to all levels of sport participants, and make it available so people can ask questions, so people can get answers to why things are happening to them and what they can do about it, most importantly. So that's what I'm all about, and what I'm trying to do, on this world, and I'm having a damn good time doing it. Let's just say that. So.
Absolutely. So are you very, very much problem solving and practical and keeping it really connected with the people that you work with, as opposed to part of psychology, which can be very much literary and analytical and
prescripted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything I do is individual, and you'll hear me say this a lot. The athlete's perception is their reality. So you have to start from their reality. You can't start from the coach's reality. You have to start from where the athlete is thinking, how they're thinking, and then you could kind of start identifying little traps that they're falling into, and coaching them or teaching them different ways of how to get out of those traps. But the best part about it is I don't work with problems. I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I can't call myself a psychologist. I don't work with clinical issues or disorders. I'm a coach. I work with performance. I work with potential. I work with taking what the athlete has and letting them bring that to the table every single time they compete. That's the goal, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish there.
So I assume that takes a bit of time, just as everything that the athlete needs to commit to.
Definitely. One of my biggest things that I'm trying to accomplish in the first few sessions with an athlete is just trust. I mean, we talk about it as coaches all the time. It's like, can you tell someone what to do? And will they actually do it, right? It's like, you can't do that. It just doesn't work, right? It's like, go out and focus. Just go focus. And they're going to go out there and they're like, what does that even mean? I don't even understand.
Just be better.
Just be better. Just go faster.
That works just fine with my kids. It's fine. What do you mean?
So it's like you got to trust them. I mean, you got to get them to trust you. You got to trust them to know that they're going to do something about it. Once you do develop that trust, then you could do a lot of stuff. I mean, they could be more open about what is troubling them, what is keeping them, from really going to where they want to go. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We're going to get into a whole bunch of topics here, but I'm really excited about it. And yeah, I think as coaches, we all run into a lot of problems, to say the least. With the athletes that we're working with, but it's not about coaching the problems out of them. It's just taking their potential and bringing it to fruition. I think that's our job, and letting it happen on race day.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just kind of getting an athlete to understand this next level of kind of their growth as an athlete, right? We need to kind of have them kind of delve into themselves and kind of mentally feel like where are they going to go and how can they kind of build on that, just the same way we build on fitness. One of our first topics here talks about it's not just about being tough, kind of this notion of not just being tougher, harder, stronger, and that sort of thing. And so from the mental skills side of things, how do you as a coach kind of break through that idea and kind of get athletes to understand that sort of
and I'll just make a little comment here. So that seems to be very ingrained in some sports. So cycling is one of them. It's shut up legs is rule number 5, right? You just need to be tough. Just get out there and be tough and get over it. So yeah, I'm really curious on your take on that.
Well, I mean, what's one of the biggest issues that we have with athletes that are first timers, like in races? What's the first thing they do?
They go out like they've normally a 4-minute miler.
every single time, right? It's like, why does that happen? And we have this social ideal that's been ingrained in us as human beings, and we can't do anything about it. It's our programming. It's kind of the social structure of sport. But they go out there and they think that they're amazing, and they are amazing. That's fantastic. But just thinking that you're amazing and going out and being like, oh, I'm going to be gritty. It's like, gritty is awareness. Gritty is being aware that you can't do that, and that's okay. Saying that's okay to I am not as strong as the next guy is one of the hardest things in the world to say. Is that not? I mean, that hits us straight in the gut every single time. It's like I go out there and I'm like, I want to beat that guy. I'm sorry, but you physically cannot beat that guy. Like, I'm sorry to say it. And why are you letting yourself, it hits your ego a lot, being like, I can accept that I'm not faster than that guy. We can't do that as human beings. We suck at that side of things, of accepting like where we're at in that moment, wherever we may be. We suck at that. And that's the gritty part of it. That's the hardest part of mental skills training, is the, awareness of where you're currently at, accepting where we're currently at, which, athletes, I mean, especially type A's, right? They're like, no, I can be better. I'm always better. It's like, no, you are where you are right now. Wherever you are, like, you have your assets. You've trained over the last 12 weeks or 18 weeks or what have you. That's what you have. You don't have any more than that. Like, sorry to say it. So go out with that mindset and stay centered on where you're at, and you're going to have a great race, and you're going to have, bring all of your opportunities or all of your potential to fruition that day. But I think the grit part of mental grit is about awareness. It's about accepting, who we are in that moment. Because I don't know, do you guys have a hard time with that?
Actually,
I used to.
Sorry, Ian.
I used to, but I'm going to make a comment here, and Andrew's going to jump in, because this is a conversation we were having prior to, I think it was prior to Texas or Kona, and we were actually talking about Garen and the competition he was going to be facing, and Andrew had made a comment about, oh yeah, some of these guys, and I'm like, I don't know, I don't look at any of the I don't care. But I don't care. I show up on race day and I race my race, and if I beat him, I beat him, and if I can't, I can't. And
how long have you been in sport for? How long have you been in cycling for, or triathlon?
15 years.
Okay, a long freaking time. You've done it.
Right.
You have done it, man. Congratulations.
So yeah. One of the questions I have, though, is because I bet a lot of times you get athletes who've been doing this for a while and they kind of hit a wall, or they can't get to that next level. But I'm betting if you had your druthers when you go and hire a coach for the first time, you wish that athlete would be talking to you at about the same time, right? I mean, earlier is better, or do you want them to be seasoned and have kind of experienced that failure and those flaws before they come and talk to you?
Oh, one of my I work with youth athletes as my priority. My priority. I want to bring them in when they're young, so I can teach them, not to fall into the focus traps that are so easy to fall into, especially at the college and professional levels. Right? It's like, I want them young, absolutely. It doesn't mean that I can't do anything with them when they're old. It's like, you can learn mindfulness at any stage. You can learn awareness at any stage.
Hope for you.
Say that again.
There's hope for you, Mitch.
There's hope for you.
Oh no, I'm only worried about my daughter now. I'm a lost cause.
Nate, you can address one thing, because when we talk about being tough, and you've hit on the people who try to outperform what their capabilities are, but can you differentiate that between the grittiness and toughness of burying yourself at the end because you are actually in competition with a person? You're trying to, get that final win, that final sprint finish, or that attack. Because there's a huge difference between being tough on that end and being tough but stupid at the beginning side of the house. And the grit to recognize where you are versus the grit of, I just have to endure a little bit to finish where we are in the race.
That's an interesting thing, because I've had the races where I don't remember anything, and I think you have too. It's flow. I mean, that literally is when we reach that state of flow, and there is no thought. There's just riding really freaking hard for a long time, and that is one place that I truly achieved. In Indian Wells, I mean, I held a normalized power that was my FTP for 2.5 hours.
Wow.
It's like, how in the hell did I do that? Like, and I'm gonna say it that way because I was blown away when I saw my numbers. I didn't look at my numbers though. I just rode my butt off for 2.5 hours, and I held, my intensity factor, was at, I think, 0.88 or something like that. And then my variability index was 0.01. Like, I held power across. It was a flat race, but it was something that I took a lot of pride in, but I didn't remember it. So when it comes to, making a decision, if you are in your head, that's okay. If you're in your head, you can bolster yourself at the end of the race. You can do a lot of things in that moment. And I would just say, have things to do in that moment. Have a plan. So when you get to that place and you're in second place or third place or fifth place, and you've got to put in an effort that you have never done before, have something that you can do in your head in order to get you there, whether that be a past memory, whether that be a mantra, whether that be, I don't care what you do, as long as you know that it's going to impact you in a positive way or a helpful way or a facilitative way. If you need a coach yelling at you, telling you that you suck, that's okay. If that's what you need, right? It's like, I need that sometimes. I need Rory Duckworth in my ear going, Nate, you have to feel the pain. And if you can't feel the pain, then you're not going to be a great athlete. Like, that's a negative thing, but that's something that helps me, right? So literally, I told him, I said, when you see me at mile 6 on the race, when I'm at mile 2, on the run, I want you to tell me that you're not good enough. Because when it comes from him, I'm like, F you, Rory. Like, I'm going to come out and I'm going to pat you on the butt and say, bye-bye, buddy. Like, that's my goal. And it helps me in that moment, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't care about positive, negative. I don't really care about that piece. I care about facilitative, debilitative. Right. If you say happy thoughts in your head, oh, life is good and things are great and la-da-da-da-da. It's like, if that is helping you, fantastic. If that is making you feel comfortable, that's not helping you win the race. I'm sorry. Right? So, I mean, we talk about this idea of grit, and this comes back to Andrea's comment about, is it individual or is it prescribed? It's very individual, very, very individual. And that's why you have to sit and bullshit with somebody for a while. And you have to get an understanding of where they're at. And you have to know kind of how their psychology works. And, once you do have that trust, you can start figuring out these plans of, at the end of the race, you're going to do this because it's going to do this. Just like at the start of a race, if you're anxious, make sure you're doing something with that anxiety. Like, do something. I don't care what it is, just something. Talk to somebody, ask questions to somebody, go swim. I don't know what it is, right? I'm getting way too excited over here. I apologize. I get so jacked about this topic. So keep going. I apologize.
Well, it's also with, training, I think, brings in, is very well married to that mental grit as well, because if you have confidence on what you do day to day, right? So if what you're doing, if your training is something that you know you can replicate because you do them over and over, you do certain things over and over. So you go out there and you know you can do that. So I think that sort of confidence has to dovetail into also the mental grit side of things, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So within mental grit, I have the ideal mindset. Like I am always teaching the athletes that I'm working with to strive for this place in their head. Process before outcome. Um, this idea of achievement before avoidance, and lastly, strength before weakness. If we find ourselves in a weakness mindset, that's okay. You're going to be there. Switch yourself and bring back the strength. Focus on your strengths. Do what you can with your strengths. If you find yourself in the outcome, bring yourself back to the process, right? This, that, and the other. Really, if you think about it, past training has already happened, so you can't do anything about it. So is there any reason to put any attention on it? Not really. If you're trying to optimize yourself right now in this race, wherever you're at, then it doesn't matter if you missed 5 sessions or if you made 30 sessions. Mm-hmm. Yes, I do agree. It does help confidence. The biggest, increaser of confidence is preparation, period. Right. But that still is taking them back. I want them to be present. I want them to be now. I don't care the challenges that you make, because you might have to go through the rain in something that you've never done in your entire life, or, you might crash and you might have to get up and you might have to deal with that situation. So yeah, acknowledge the past, acknowledge the future and where you want to go. That's okay, right? Gain confidence from that, gain motivation from the future, have that happen, accept where you're at though, and then go from, move forward from there. So when I talk about this idea of process before outcome, you're going to find yourself in the outcome or in the present, or in the past a lot. That's okay. Just bring yourself back to the now when it comes to competition. Bring yourself back, because if you can put yourself in that mindset, that's the quote unquote ideal place that you can be. That's a large topic right there, but
and that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. And this is where I think also I get into a little bit of the topic of physical limitation versus mental block, and understanding, we do your training and all of that, but then how does an athlete know the difference? Is it really that they're not as good of an athlete? Or is it really their minds that are holding them back? How do you know? So let's say that you have an athlete who trains and a lot, and it's got good coaching, good training, all of those things, but maybe they're not achieving what they want to be, or whatever their goals are, because that's the other thing, right? The goals are something very broad, because it doesn't have to be outcomes; it can be process, and we as coaches focus a lot on that too.
Right.
But how does an athlete know, well, is it really just all in my mind, or is it in my legs and I really am not ready for this?
Is it? I mean, that's the question. I really do think that's the question. Is it in your mind? Are you holding yourself back? Are you being an a-hole to yourself in your head? While you're writing, are you putting yourself in an ideal mindset? And if you are, and then all of a sudden, you're not able to do a workout, guess what? You found a physical limitation. I mean, it's not mental, because you didn't do anything mentally that hurt you. But how many athletes do you know that don't hurt themselves in their head? Really? I mean, I would like to actually talk to Jason on this one, because Jason, watching you in the rides that you do them live, you do them very, very organically. And I love that. It's very genuine, the way that you present yourself as an athlete, especially in the live world of YouTube and all this virtual stuff, right? It's like, so I mean, do you feel like your head game is quote unquote facilitative or debilitative? And, have you found a physical limitation? I mean, have you found that space where you put your head in the right place and your body just couldn't go anymore? Have you done that yet?
It's odd, and it's this thing that putting ourselves out here. Both Tay and I do plenty of streaming, and one of the notions, or that we always keep in the back of our mind, is we make sure that part of it happens not as a job, but the part of it happens as something that is additive to our training, is additive to our coaching. At any point, if it's not, then we make sure to remind ourselves, hey, it's not something you have to do, because it needs to be additive. Because when it's not, then that's when it can really start to break down, those mental things. I have to be present. I have to be ready to make those comments and to have that conversation with, a lot of times, just myself. Sometimes, there's not anybody there. And so, answering your question, have I reached the physical limit? I feel like where I'm at, I'm still growing. I'm constantly growing.
Well, have you ever reached a limit? Like, have you ever reached a limit in one workout where it was like, I got there. I quote unquote bonked, right? My legs could not go any further.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
Have you got there?
Yeah, and I think so. We do much less FTP testing now in the endurance lab, but we definitely have. I think one of my kind of culminations would be the last 20-minute test. You and I have chatted about that, and it was kind of very laid out, kind of just really metered, and really just dumped everything out in that last 5 minutes. And it's something at the time where a lot of riders were looking for insight, and having someone concentrate and focus for 20 minutes is nearly impossible. So being able to kind of give some guidance on essentially the pacing, or really just prescription, because that's what it was, a combination of how we run our workouts outside of ERG, really allowing a rider to kind of utilize that, and then just opening that last 5 minutes to be able to just really put yourself down and really dig deep. I mean, that day I definitely can look back and remember.
Did you feel great about it? I mean, did
Absolutely.
you feel great about it? And in the end, you reached your physical limitation, you felt great about it. And that's in my opinion, the difference between, a mental block and a physical limitation. A mental block is something that you have control over. You're probably going to, at the end of your effort, if it was a block of some sort, you're going to feel disappointed in yourself. You're going to be like, I could have gone more. I could have done it. I should have done it. And you start utilizing a lot of that talk, and it, there's a sense of controllability around mental blocks. There really is.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I can actually speak about mental block.
Makes sense.
Fear comes in, doesn't it? I mean, it comes into fear, and we know we can control fear, and we hate when fear controls us. We hate that. But mental blocks do literally come from fear. That's the premise of it, right? So when it comes to finding physical limitations, though, you do something so great, and you know that you did everything you possibly could. You put every effort into it. You didn't hold yourself back here. You let go, right? You accepted the pain. You did it. Mm-hmm. And you come out of those efforts going, oh my gosh, right? And I want to make something very clear. These efforts, or this physical limitation versus mental block, is in the moment. It's not, this is your current physical limitation. This is not your reality for your life. Like, I think people see that and they're like, oh, this is a mental block and I can't do anything about it. Oh, this is my physical limit. I'm never going to surpass it. And then they do a race and all of a sudden their FTP is 5 watts higher. And it's like, what happened? Right. So, my point is again, it doesn't stay in the moment. Stay in the moment, stay in this current place and meet this current limitation, whether it be a block or a physical limitation, and see if you can push it. See if you can push that rock down the road just a little bit, right? And the more you do that, the better you're going to be. And, you're not going to reach limits. You're not going to, because you're just always combating the limit that you're currently at, mentally and physically, whatever it might be. So always look for that. I mean, if you come out of a effort in this moment, and you sucked, that you didn't do a very good job, your head was in the wrong place, you let yourself sit in the suck for too long, that's okay. You got to accept that just happens, right? Go into the next one and try to put yourself in a better place and go after it. It's so whimsical. I know, like all this stuff, it's so like ethereal almost. Which is why I always I center on just be present. That's the answer. Again, come back to your process before outcome. Come back to, achievement. What do you want rather than what you not want? Come back to strength. What do you have rather than what don't you have? And if you can do that on a daily basis, if you could try to put yourself as much in those places as you can, you're going to optimize your physical potential. You're going to be able to do the things that you want to do better. Right. I mean, then that's, we kind of go down that route. I get on these tangent or these I get rolling on these ideals, guys. I need your input here. What are your thoughts?
I know, Andrea, you had a comment there. Jump in.
Yeah, actually, I very much was running into that mental limitation. And it was about, so when you're pushing yourself in a race, like I've no problem training really hard. I'm very good at that. But in a race, to get into that real pain zone was a trigger for me with how it felt. And I'll be completely open because a lot of people have issues with eating and over exercise. Yeah. So in my youth, you were always on a fine line of not eating enough, under fueling, over exercising. And that's a big adrenaline rush state. So hitting those tricky places in pain in a race were very similar, and it would bring up actually fear. And so when you start on a journey of self-care, you're trying to be kind and you're a little tentative about going back into that space. So for me, it was gradual steps with self-trust. I'm doing this for a different reason. It's motivated by different reasons, not beating yourself up and understanding that just like you're training, it's going to take a while. So one thing I started to do was when I really needed that push near the end, or I was going into that zone that sort of freaks me a little bit, I'd tell myself, okay, body, I'm listening to you, but right now I'm going to switch off and I'm going to pick you up at the end of the race. You just got to trust me that when we get to the end, I'm still there. I still love you. Self-care is still going to happen and you're in no danger. And so it was just small steps. And I think I still can push that a little bit, but I had to be kind rather than focus on the negative. Like you say, spin the positive at every point.
I love it. And you practiced that, it sounds like. It sounds like that was kind of your plan. It's say you had this saying or this story that you told your body, right? It's like, hey, so this is that moment. I'm gonna turn you off now. You're gonna be okay. It's the same exact thing that I do. I did at Indian Wells in the last mile, 2 miles of that run. I was thinking, great job, Nate. Like, I am so proud of you, body. Like, you've got to give me more right now, though. You have to. I need you right now, right? And that's something that I was literally saying out loud for the last 2.5 miles. They probably thought I was a little crazy and I was a little bent over like this when I was running, because that's just what happens. We get into that space and all you can do is practice something that's helpful. And like you said, you did something that's helpful. And I'm going to tell you right now, even if if you spend the next 1.5 years practicing that and getting into the opportunity to practice that, which is difficult to do in the first place, to actually have the opportunity to push yourself that hard. But every time you do have that opportunity, practice exactly what you're saying. Practice switching yourself off. Practice telling your body, hey, I'm gonna go for a minute, but I'm gonna come back. Because that practice is 1 rep. And that's how you start building your programming is by taking the opportunities that are in front of you. And I don't know, but it really is. That's the hard part, is we don't have those opportunities very often. We have them in races. Yeah. But we don't have the opportunity to do that kind of hard work in training. I mean, really, it's kind of harmful in training to do something like that because it takes us out of the game for so long. And we've got to do a lot more resting and things like that. Do you guys run into that a lot where racers or athletes don't have, an understanding of what to do at the end when it does get really hard because they've never experienced it a lot before? I mean, do you run into that at all?
I guess there's a line of overcautious and, well, how far, like, is it stupid to end up in the medical tent, or is that what we should be pushing them for?
Is that their goal?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Right? That's the guide. That is the guide, in my opinion, is you got to get an understanding of where they want to go. Mm-hmm. Hey, do you want to be an Olympian? Yes? Okay, then you better be in the medical tent at the end of the day. like literally, if that's their goal, great. If their goal is survival and accomplishment of whatever it might be, then you kind of have to act differently. And that's where their perceptions, their reality, you kind of got to take it. If they don't, I think one of our goals as coaches is accountability. Like, you told me you wanted to do this. You told me this is what you want. I'm going to help you get there. But if you don't do it, I can't help you. Like, you told me that this is what you want. I'm just going to be here for you and support the heck out of you to get to where you want to go. And if we can make that happen, there's going to be a lot of action on your part as the athlete. And you're going to have to put yourself into some pretty wicked places in order to get there. Here's an overlook of what that might look like, right? But anyway, that's the individuality of every athlete that we work with. How do you treat them? Do you treat them differently?
Okay, what were you gonna add?
Yeah, I was gonna say that that's gotta have something to do with, like you're saying, personality, because some people are never gonna be the ones who want to end in a medical tent, right? And I'm gonna bring an example here. I think my husband is the kind of athlete who wants to be in a medical tent every single time. He is that kind of athlete.
I thought you were gonna say every single day. You've seen his workouts. It actually
might be every single day. Yeah. It's like, hey, I have 30 minutes left. I'm just going to repeat all the intervals again.
That's funny.
So, but then I see others that I work with, and it's just not there. It's different. And there's no right or wrong. There's no better or worse. Is my husband better than the other? No, it's just what that person wants. And this is where I think you're right, Nate. We bring in as coaches to match and remind the athletes what is it that they want, right?
And why do they want it?
Right, exactly.
It's the opportunity. You're talking about personality types, and that is something that kind of intrigued me in the beginning of all of my education. Is there a different type? Because I noticed the same thing. My coach could push the crap out of me, and he could tell me the worst, most debilitative things, and it would make me so excited. You couldn't do that to the next person. That coach could not. But my coach and I, we worked really well together. He didn't really work very well with the other athlete type, right? I'm talking about types, and when I started getting into this, there's a professor. His name's Dr. Troutwine. He was actually a guy who he was profiling athletes in the NFL, through the combine. And he would, have them do these psychological assessments. And over the last 10, 15, 20 years, he's actually developed an assessment of where you can actually, he found over all of those years of NFL, NHL, MLB, right? He went through all the gambit of professional sports, and found out, and that there's pretty much 8 athlete types. And there's ways on how you coach each of those types. And there's ways on how you support each of those types. And there's ways on how you motivate each of those types, and how to bring them back up after setbacks, and what to do in order to help them get to where they want to go. And it's something that I've integrated into my practice. Every time I'm working with an athlete for the first time, I'm always putting them through this assessment, because it allows me an idea of how to coach them. It also helps them understand what their assets are mentally, right, and what maybe their weaknesses are mentally. For example, so I'm a rocket. I'm called a rocket. I'm a driven athlete, is what it's called. I'm confident in charge style. I'm cool, calm, and collected. When it comes to workouts, I have a very optimistic demeanor. I do decide too quickly without fully considering options, though. That is something that I've had to keep an eye on a lot, because I forget things. I miss the details. I rigidly stick to plans, and if I don't have a plan, I'm pretty, off the rocker, right? If my Training Peaks doesn't have a workout in the next day, I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need something to do. I can be perceived as arrogant a lot. I fail to consider implications of my actions. But that's my personality type. So, I look at that and I think, well, what are the strengths? What am I really good at? Use those to get to where you want to go, Nate. Or with an athlete, use those to get to where you want to go, athlete, right? Keep an eye on these things, though, because you might find pitfalls with regards to sticking to plans. Or you could, talk to their coach and say, hey, coach, they need a plan. They need to make sure they have a plan for race day. So make sure you get them a plan for race day, right? Yeah. So that's just an idea, or a personality type within the 8 different personality types. This is, the Rocket is similar to Tom Brady or Brendan Fowler or Alicia Priorin and netball. And that's kind of the fun part about, the TAP assessment, is it actually allows you to see who you're kind of like as an athlete. And like you said before, there's no wrong type. there's no bad type of athlete. There's just a different type of athlete. So if I were to go to kind of an opposite side, the musketeer or the helpful athlete, the musketeer is loyal. They're true to their self. They don't usually rock the boat. They're not really kind of out there. They have a greater focus on the team than on winning themselves, right? They're really easy to talk to. They don't need to be the star. So that's kind of, a very, unusual or opposite than myself and my personality. Their strengths are they have a strong desire to help others. So why can't you use that in competition? Right. It's like you can help them understand, okay, if you have a strong desire, if you are motivated by helping others, why not work that into your plan at the end of the race? Why not start talking to other people at the end of the race saying, you've got this, guys, you can do that, because when you do that, it helps yourself.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway,
that's similar. Yeah. And that's similar to, knowing, for example, in cycling or any sport, what your role is in the sport.
Yeah,
so let's say your rider
absolutely.
type is a climber. So
Yes.
you know how to, let's say, address, a stage race or a race that has climbing and flat sections, and you know what your strengths are and you work on those. I think that's, the parallel that I would draw for also the personality. So you focus on those strengths and you get them to work for you.
Yeah. If your personality type and your role are matched, you're going to have a pretty deadly athlete.
Yeah.
Like really, really impactful team athlete there. Right.
Right.
And, if your personality type and your role do not match, you're going to have some conflict. You're going to have some issues. You're going to have some upset, athletes, because who they are and what they're trying to be are different, or the same, whatever it might be. But anyway, I think it's super impactful for coaches to have that kind of information of, hey, this is the athlete that you're working with. Right.
Yeah, so I think this plays a really important role in how we manage, and having this tool, or having, someone like Nate to be able to relay off of, to be able to gather that information and be able to dig deep into an athlete and get that information to be able to work with groups like us. And I think the group is where kind of coaches evolving, a lot of times there's a lot of one-on-one, peer-on-peer, we call it. But really, if a single coach isn't able to answer a question, and none of us claim to know everything, and that's why we use everyone and our resources, there shouldn't be a coach that says, no, I know everything. Oh, I can fix your bike fit. I can do your mental fit. I can find out what kind of rider you are in racing. I can fix everything. If you ever run into
run away
like
from that coach.
exactly. And
thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to, and that's why we need these resources, and that's what we essentially become. We are managing our athletes with what they need. They need encouragement at this point. They need to be pushed at this point. They need to be brought back. They need resources. Those are the things that this next level of group coaching, group efforts is kind of bringing to the table.
So there's going to be times then that the coach and the athlete just aren't going to be a good relationship, and it's being honest about that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. There may not be a match, and that's where different personalities can clash. I think, and it might just be temporary. It just might be getting through something. It might be kind of talking through something, or getting an understanding of what the goals of the athlete are and what the coach is trying to get them through. There's different things, right?
Yeah. But that's a great point. If you come across a coach who tells you they can do everything, run away.
Absolutely.
And talk with your coach, right? It's like, okay, when you're meeting them, sit down with them and BS with them for an hour. You're going to find a connection or you're not. And if you don't, that's okay. Athletes, I want you to know that is okay to go try out a bunch of different coaches, because you will find one that you work with well. You find one, and coaches, we've kind of got to be on the backside of things and saying, hey, if we don't fit, that's okay. I'm still here to back you up. If you need anything, say something, right? And I've been very adamant about that in my personal practice lately, and it's led to such better outcomes, just because the relationship and the process that we go through is so much better. We jive together. We work well together. There are athletes that I don't work with on purpose, because I know that I can't help them, or I can't support them in the way that they need a support. So yeah, explore, find a coach that works best with you, right? And ask questions and talk with them, and know that it's okay to say no. It's okay to not go with that coach or work with that athlete.
Yeah. We did get a couple questions kind of before this interview, and a lot of them were kind of surrounding on how to deal with certain mental issues that riders may come across. One big kind of resounding thing that we had heard about is kind of how athletes, especially kind of higher profile athletes, deal with social media, and how people view maybe the athlete, or how they view others as they're kind of, searching through their social media. And as you evolve as an athlete, how could somebody deal with that? Or how do we deal with those athletes that are affected by that?
Awareness.
Yeah.
This comes back to the awareness. Does it affect you?
Yeah.
And how does it affect you? And in your guys' opinion, how does social media affect your athletes?
It affects.
I take one person. It might not affect another person the same way.
But I think I could be completely wrong here, but I actually think it affects everyone at some level, positive or negatively. I think big risk out there is looking at other athletes, just like you would in other parts of life, not just sports, and think how many people are out there that are so much better than you because they look like they are.
Yeah.
Based on their posts, based on what they're portraying in social media. And it's okay to look at that as an ideal and say, I want to be like that. But I think it's easy to get a little bit lost to who you are and where you are as an athlete when you look at the spectrum of what's out there, and who knows what's being portrayed too. You're just seeing a snapshot, right? You don't know anything behind that. And you might see a snapshot of a big success. You don't know the years that led to that success, or the struggles that led to that success, or if that's even true. So I think it's tricky, to be looking at that a lot, and putting yourself and trying to fit yourself into where you might fall in that social media spectrum.
Yep, I totally agree. And I'm gonna kind of flip the script a little bit on this and talk about pregnancy. Interestingly enough, so my wife, she's going through pregnancy right now, and mom shame is a thing.
Oh yeah.
Athlete shame is a thing. We shame ourselves because we see other people and how they go about things. Parenting is a dirty job. Like, it is a dirty job, right? And people don't, when they post about how parenting, how good their kids are and it's like, that's such BS. That's such crap. I'm sorry to say it, but if you're a parent, you get it. You know what I'm talking about if you're a parent. If you don't, then don't even talk. I'm sorry to say it, but you don't even know the reality. It is crazy. It's dramatic. It is stressful. It is so much more than anybody could even perceive. Like, I thought I was getting myself. I'm like the mental guy. I was like, I'm preparing myself for parenting, right? I didn't even get close. To what the reality was. And I handled that. I still handle it. Even preparing for the mood swings and stuff like that for, the wife. I know what's coming, and that's okay that they're coming, right? And then they happen, and you're still like, holy crap. And it's the same thing in athletics, though, right? It's like, we look at all of this and we're like, oh, that's so easy for them. Oh, it's not difficult. Oh, they have a makeup on at the end of the race, or it's like that. It's such crap. You can't prepare for, legitimately. You will never be able to prepare fully, especially in your first 5 or 6 half Ironmans, century rides, century races, for the challenges that you will meet inside those races. That's why I'm saying that process before outcome. You do not know what's going to happen. So stop trying to put yourself in the future to try to figure something out. You're like making a plan to make a plan. It's like, it doesn't work like that. If you want to be optimal, just be present and know that you're going to deal with a lot of crap along the way, and realize that you can deal with a lot of crap. You are capable of dealing with that crap. You are capable of assessing the situation and moving on, right? I do agree. I think social media is a trap. I think it's a huge trap. I think every athlete should ask themselves, how does this impact me, and be very honest about it. How does social media impact me? What does it do to me? How does it make me feel about myself? How does it make me, what does it do when I'm engaging with or, receiving information from social media? And if it helps you, honestly, great. That's great. If it's motivating to you and it keeps you going, that's phenomenal. If it's helping you achieve your goals, that's great. If it's not, and you do find it to be debilitative, and you do find your confidence waning because you're putting your attention on something that's just not real, okay, that's great too, right? Accept it and do something about it. Don't just sit there in the suck where like that's why I got off of social media. Like I really am bad at social media because it influenced me in such a debilitative way.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest about that. I should do a lot more because of my business. I should be on social media and engaging with others because that's how you do business in this world. But if I do that, it's hurting me. Yeah. Mentally, it's hurting me as a person. It's hurting me socially. It's hurting me. It's not helping. So I just let it go and I accept that, and that's okay. However, again, that's the grit. That's the hard part, is being aware of that and accepting it. And it's like, gosh, the shoulds, man. I've had athletes. I have shoulded all over myself before. Let's be honest with that. Right? I ask people, if you're coming up with all these shoulds, are you present? Because shoulds are in the future. Could-haves are in the past. Should-haves are in the past, right? Like that's not present. Be present. Like if you find yourself in the outcomes or in the future or in the past, that's okay. Just find yourself back to the present. Be where your feet are. Come back to the breath. Come back to what you can control. Be present. And if you can override all of that outcome-oriented thinking or past and future thinking, you will be more effective. You will be more optimized, right? And I think that's what we're trying to do as coaches, is help athletes be optimal when it matters.
I think
the other side.
Go ahead, Andrea. Go ahead.
The other side of social media, and we're all going to have it. So we have a mental coach here, and we have 2 cycling coaches and me, the nutritional coach, and we have Google walk in our door every day from our clients. And it's like firefighting all the blogs and opinions and non-scientific, non-contextual information that comes out there. And I find for all of our experience, like we all have about 20 years experience each, the trust, it seems so hard to convince someone that this diet, when you look at it in the timeline of all the information that we know, it's another fad, and it's going to come back in 20 years and 30 years. And the same with the training. And just, I find that bit, actually, I find it really beats me up sometimes. I want to quit on my clients because I'm like, I'm tired. I'm trying to convince you all.
Don't worry, they'll all come back. She'll come back to us. Don't worry. And I think
I agree though.
Yeah. I think giving the tools to our athletes. There's been a big shift in what we do at the Endurance Lab. We've moved over to a format that allows a community-based thing outside of social media. It allows a group that's working together to kind of grow organically, to kind of support each other outside of other things. And I think I feel like it's a better place to be, especially for what we're trying to do. We've seen other groups do it with success, and it's just tough to do it. Essentially, we're talking about trying to do this within social media. Let's say within Facebook, for example, you've got all these things kind of coming at you, ads and notifications and all this stuff that you want, clickbait that you want to kind of see and like, oh, how's this person doing? But when in fact, what you need in this sort of space, if you're trying to improve yourself, if you're trying to get to the next level, is you need people that are going to support you when you need it. People like Nate that are going to put you down when you don't want to, and kind of in the end make you a better person. But I think it is important to at least realize, as Nate's here talking, be aware of how it affects you for our athletes, and then make a change accordingly.
And maybe you're not going to have to make a change. Yeah. And I'm going to be honest. Like maybe you're not. Maybe you thrive in the social media environment. Maybe. And if you do, great. That's awesome. But just know that and use it, right? I talk about this whole strengths before weakness thing. Maybe that's one of your strengths, is social structure and social engagement is something that motivates and drives you. If that's the case, ask yourself that question. Is it something that is really helpful
Well,
for
virtual
me?
social engagement, right?
Yeah, but and that's the other side of things, right? Like the virtual side, I am very social, like in the real world, but if I go virtual, I am skittish. I'm skittish. I'm like, ooh, like I'm a rat. I'm like, ooh, like I don't know
That's
if I'm,
interesting.
ooh, right? It's I don't know why, but that's just okay. But that's my reality. Does it hurt me in my goals to be that way? Maybe. Depends on if it's a business goal or if it's a cycling goal. In cycling, it doesn't hurt me because I can just do my own thing and I'm still doing my own thing. I know it's not debilitative for me to stay off of Facebook, to stay off of. I know that's not hurting me. And I'm okay with that. It sometimes sucks because I see all my my friends doing all these things and posting, and then I look at that and go, is that aligned with my values? And I think that comes back to another thing within mental skills training that we talk about a lot, and personality types. You kind of have to come down to what are my values as an athlete, and I talk about this with the athletes a lot. You've got to know your values, and that will clarify a lot of things for you. It'll clarify a lot of questions for you. I have all the athletes that I work with go through a full values panel and, really put 2 or 3 on top as important to them to help them get to their goals. And I use those values to help you get to your goals. And if those values do not align with what you're doing, stop doing them.
Yeah.
If those values don't align with what other people are doing and you find yourself like wanting to do that, ask yourself, well, does that align with what I want, and how I want to do it? And if it doesn't, then it's an easy answer. It's like, oh, I don't have to be on my phone right now, even though everybody else is.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even want to be because I have a bigger, drive behind me or bigger bases or mental bases. So we talk a lot about the stuff that we can do in training, mental skills wise, in racing, mental skills wise. There is a big other part of mental skills training, and that's person.
Yeah.
And that's
The rest of the
values.
day.
And
It's
everything else.
Yeah, everything else. Yeah. Outside of the
process
hour or two that we do and we train for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Strength before weakness is a daily thing.
Yeah.
It's developing the person. Process before outcome is not just training. It's a daily thing. It's every single day. Achievement before avoidance is a daily thing. Earning and owning it over entitlement is a daily thing. And that's just developing the person, right? And I think that's what we can do as coaches as well. It's not just the athlete that we're working with. We are working with the person. And I think you see this a lot, Andrea, especially in nutrition, is you're working with the person a lot. Could you speak to those points at all?
I'm just listening to you. All of those last lines you gave are so powerful. I'm like, yeah. They're in there going over and over. Wow.
Do you find yourself getting, especially with nutrition, that you're working with the person more than you're working with a diet? You're working
completely.
with a person more than you're working with carbs or proteins, right? Like that's the subject. I get that. But it really is, as coaches, it's again coming back to that whole trust. It's like you develop a really trusting relationship with them. And by doing so, you're hopefully helping each other get to where each other wants to go. You're becoming friends almost. You're becoming that support system, that collaborative, getting to where we want to go. And I love what you guys are doing. Again, you're doing it with more coaches. You're bringing a whole bunch of coaches together and saying, hey, we're a big group that you can trust and you can ask questions and you can be genuine and support and love, and we'll back you all up. That's exciting to me. Thank you for doing it.
Absolutely. We're coming up on time. I want to make sure we are respectful of Coach Lass's time.
Please.
But as we kind of wrap up here, I'd like to kind of give a picture kind of holistically. How do coaches like yourself, Nate, work with groups like us? And for an athlete, how does that look? Because obviously these are all different parts. We've got Andrea here, we've got you, Nate, we've got us. Kind of let's see if we can give a picture to an athlete just kind of seeing this for the first time. Like, how does it all come together? Obviously from our end, they're getting a plan. They're getting an evaluation of their goals on our side. Realistic outcome-based goals. Their own their goals of what they want to do in the year. So what is the role that, like, for example, what are they going to you at that point for? And how does this picture look with all of us in it?
So most of the time, I will sit down with an athlete with a bunch of groups or a bunch of coaches in a group. I'll get their TAP assessment. I'll get their assessment done, and I'll converse with the athlete, and I'll sit down with them and say, "Hey, where are your strengths? Let's go through all of this. Is this okay to take to your coach? Do you want me to take this to your coach because I think this might be really helpful for him or her to know a little bit more about your personality?" If they say yes, I say, "Okay, I'm going to go ahead and give this over to them." And they'll be able to have that information to utilize in working with you. If they say no, I keep it to myself and I say, okay, are there goals mentally that you feel like if you did something about that you could be a better athlete? And if they say yes, you work with them and you work one-on-one and you help them develop the mental skills that they need, because sometimes it is mental, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's nutritional. Right. And I think just the opportunity for an athlete to sit down and go through that and say, hey, what's my biggest opportunity? Is it developing my body and getting stronger? Is it my nutrition and eating better? Is it my mind and being just a better mental athlete? And what's the biggest opportunity? And that's kind of the part that we play. Each of these pieces are a part, and I think it's up to the athlete to explore each of those avenues because they're all a big piece of the pie. From a 10,000-foot view, I sit down and I work with the coaches. And if a coach comes to me and says, "Coach, I've got this athlete. I don't know what to do with them. I've got that they're having issues with confidence, and I don't know how to work with them." I ask the athlete, "Hey, here's an opportunity to work with me. I can sit down and talk to you about this." If they say, "No, I want to work with my other coach," I say, "Okay, hey coach, here are a couple of things that you can start with."
I like that.
I want to be the resource. I want to be the resource for triathlon coaches, for cycling coaches, for running coaches, to just ask questions. "Hey, I've got this going on. What can I do about it? Oh, here's a few things. Try some of these things out as a coach. See what happens." Because guess what? Coaches, you have the trust.
Yeah.
You've already developed that. It's not something that I have. So it's your job to provide them with the information with a bunch of experts coming up around you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that typically works. But it's a team concept. Absolutely. It's all part. Explore. That's all I would say to the athlete. Explore each of the avenues. See what's the opportunity for you. Once you find it, then train it. Get better at that, and then move on to the next opportunity, whatever it might be.
So every year, and we spoke about this in one of the Coaches Corners podcast last year, where I'll sit down and I encourage people to as well. I find it useful, do a review of the year. What were my strengths and weaknesses and where do I want to grow? So they need to sit there with all that we've talked about and decide on where they want to grow and then how they're going to resource that and who they're going to seek support from. It's building a team. I think that's the biggest thing in our lives that help us.
At the Olympic level, how many people are around Olympians?
Yeah.
5.
Wow.
One of them are parents, typically, just so you guys are aware, right? Right. Support system. That's a big one. Then you have your nutritionist, you have your psych, you have your PT, and you have your coach.
Wow.
Right. So there are 5 very, very, expert people surrounding Olympians when they go to high quality competition. Why does that have to only happen at Olympic level though? Like, why can't that happen for the regular person? And I'm just saying it can. I'm just saying that's the way it could be. Not focusing on it, but just motivating. I think all of us that's the opportunity. I think now we just have to do the things that we're doing right now, right? Drive back into the process, and hopefully be able to support these athletes. But I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. So if you guys have any questions, you as viewers or listeners have questions on how this all fits together, Nate was able to put and kind of embroider a very nice look at kind of how this works, how people like and coaches like Nate support coaches like us in order to get you guys the value in what we do and be able to get you to reach your goals. I'm gonna pass it on to Nate to give him all his social media accounts to tell us where we could find him, or at least his website address of where we could find him and how we could reach Nate Lass. Oh, it looks like we lost audio there for a second. So We'll see. So right now, you could actually reach Coach Lass at mentalgritconsulting.com, and you'll be able to find all his information there if you're looking for a consult. He does one-on-one coaching. He does on-site group training, and just a really great place to get resources about everything he talked about. Don't forget, some of his ideas were take-homes were process before outcome, achievement before avoidance, and strength before weakness. So really take those home. Make sure, if you have any questions there, bring them back to us. We'll see if Nate's got some audio coming here, and we'll get a chance to bring him back. Ladies, are you still there? Both audios are out. Give me a second here. Oh, looks like I am off. So we'll see if we can do this blind, because all of you guys can hear each other, but I can't hear me. So we'll do the pull out here. So give me a second here, and I'll do the sign out. But I want to thank everybody for coming on. I want to thank Coach Lass for coming on, and everyone listening to the Coach's Corner. If it's your first time listening and would like to hear more content from the Endurance Lab, head over to your favorite podcast app and search the Endurance Lab, or head over to YouTube and search the same. Don't forget to check out mentalgritconsulting.com for more information from Coach Lass, and for more information of when our next lab is, head over to endurancelab.fit to learn where you can join us to train smart and get results. We'll see everybody next week. Thank you.